Hello and welcome to the super awkward fun review of The X-Files. We are on season 9. Let's get straight to it. This is the end. Let's go. Episode 1. Nothing important happened today. Written by Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz. Directed by Kim Manners. Well, that's a new opening. You might notice David's name is absent. Well, he's no longer on the show, but at least he's not dead. And don't worry, he'll be back. This season, Robert Patrick and Annabeth Gish have a lot more screen time, so my reviews are going to be short as fuck until the finale. The way they just have Mulder disappear is very clunky, but they did what they could to adapt to this situation, so I'm not too mad at them. I understand why this season was the way it is, but it still sucks to rewatch, not gonna lie. This is definitely the worst season premiere. Nothing important happened today, part 2, episode 2. Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz wrote it. Tony Warmby directs. This is the continuation of the premiere episode, and it sees Skin Dog back as a team alongside Reyes investigating a chloramine case, although Dog gets a bit caught up in it. Meanwhile, Scully's still worried about her baby because weird shit has been happening. We at least get more Mulder talk. His presence is still felt in this episode. Lucy Lawless is guesting as a government experiment created by the chloramine in the water. She was in the premiere as a killer swimmer. He's no CSM. The lone gunmen are on the case. This episode is better than the first part as usual. I don't know how predictive the chloramine super soldier storyline is, but I do know the government taints our water 100%, so there's that. Episode 3, Demonicus, written by Frank Spotnitz, directed by Frank Spotnitz. Yet another reminder that this is not the same show without Mulder and Scully at the forefront. There's a lot of Doggett and Reyes this season, and it's clear they were preparing to make it into a spinoff with them. The audience rejected that idea. I can't wait to get to the finale at this point. You don't even know. This ep was fine. It just isn't as good as it should be. And the X-File wasn't interesting. Next, 4D, Episode 4. Written by Stephen Maeda, directed by Tony Warmby. They tried, but it's not the same. You cannot replicate the chemistry between David's Mulder and Julian Scully. It is impossible. This ep is all about Doggett and Reyes, and also Scully's there. Kind of like every other episode. Oh, and Skinner too. The X-File is a dude with superpowers, nothing too different. He put Doggett in the hospital in a parallel universe, though, so that's a bit new. It was a decent episode overall. Lord of the Flies, Episode 5. Let's move on. Thomas Schnauz wrote it. Kim Manners directs. That dumbass looks familiar. Yep, it is Aaron Paul. This show is taking aim at the series Jackass in this episode. He really fucked up his friend. Flies are the culprit. Scully's basically a consultant now. She's confused. Jane Lynch is also here. It's a shame Mulder is MIA. He would have had fun with this case. It's a good premise. Scully has gotten more laid back, so we have a little bit of her humor, but it's not as satisfying. Side note, I love her hair. See, I can be complimentary. The best thing about this ep is the focus on the story with the dumbasses. It's so much better when the case is interesting. Also, I enjoyed the young actors' performances here. Aaron Paul isn't the main character, but he makes an impact. I liked the main one too, who's the villain. Solid show this time. It felt like a different show, but it was good. Normally wouldn't be a top 5 contender, but anything's possible this season, considering how little I have to work with here. Trust No One, Episode 6. Written by Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz, directed by Tony Warmby. How dare you? Honestly, I can't. Stop it. I'm emotional. They know what they're doing. That whole intro was the most bittersweet thing. Hearing Scully's words of wisdom to her baby William with the montage of our fave moments with the parents. Heartbreaking stuff. He called her Dana. Aw. Also title. I love her Queequeg email too. It's good to be with Scully again in this episode, and we get to see her as a mother more. This was the beginning of the end of the show, where Mulder starts to come back into the narrative. It also has a lot of the new super soldier story in it, which doesn't feel very fleshed out. It's a good episode overall, but pales in comparison to what this show used to be. Still a top 5 contender because, season 9. John Doe, Episode 7. Vince Gilligan wrote it. Michelle MacLaren directs it. You might recognize her name. She goes on to direct Breaking Bad episodes. Alright, Vince and Michelle, let's see what you got. Oh no, John Doggett is the main focus again. He's John Doe. They did their best, but Robert Patrick didn't do it for me. This is supposed to be a showcase for his character, and it doesn't work as well as it could, in my opinion. He's not bad here, it's just not exactly where it should be. I wish I cared more about his dead kid and the memories he forgot, but I don't really. I will say that the atmosphere is very similar to what we see in Breaking Bad. This could have been an inspiration for that look. I mean, there's even a cartel in this episode. Nice work, and they build upon it well in the future. Hellbound, Episode 8. David Amon wrote it. Kim Manners directs. Back to your regularly scheduled X-Files episode. This looks like hell. There's more Monica Reyes in this episode, so if you like her, you'll probably like the story. I don't care for her, so I'm just meh on it. This case feels kind of by the numbers. Scully is now full on in her Mulder role, explaining the background information to help the agents. It's a good episode, but not a top 5 contender. Episode 9, Providence. Written by Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz, directed by Kim Manners. Not this guy again. And doesn't he have a foot to saw off? Anyway, we're back at the alien civilization storyline from the Sixth Extinction Eps. Scully catches Reyes up on it and says it's connected to William. Another one, this time in Canada. Scully was right about William being at risk, but she neutralizes the FBI agent. There's the connection. Gillian Anderson did a great job in this episode. She tries to sell the weird storyline, but it doesn't quite work. It is good to see William become a more important character again. He's not an alien baby, though. Time to call in the best babysitters ever. Never mind. It's a solid first part episode. They're trying to make us believe Mulder is dead again to not true. On to Providence, Episode 10. Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz wrote again. Chris Carter directs again. Nice! Scully is so based this season, calling out the FBI for trying to kill the people working on the X-Files. She's clinging to William because she thinks that's all she has left after losing Mulder. Oh, and Doggett's hurt. Okay. He'll survive. Him, not so much. He says to trade Mulder for the son. Yes, Mulder is still alive, which fucked up the prophecy, and leads to this. Welcome back, Billy. I honestly was more worried about him than Doggett, even though I knew he'd be fine. Another one. And that was a pretty good second part. I still think the whole super soldier storyline being tied in with the extinction one is a bit haphazard, but it's okay. We're getting closer to the finale where shit gets really interesting. Next is Audrey Polly, Episode 11, written by Stephen Maida, directed by Kim Manners. This episode focuses on Reyes again. She dies, ends up in a kind of limbo in a doll hospital, and eventually comes back to life. This Kevorkian wannabe is to blame. They also get closer in this ep, but not close enough. It's an okay episode, interesting premise. Execution isn't that great, but they tried. Season 9 in a nutshell. They tried. Episode 12, Underneath, written by John Scheiben, directed by John Scheiben. This episode goes back to the creepy serial killer plot. Fassi is innocent, says the DNA. John is sure he's not. He's wrong. This did it. We get more backstory with John and his old partner in the force, and we see him make peace with the past by closing the case. It was a good ep. I appreciated the performances, and John Scheiben did a good job writing and directing it. I still miss Mulder, though. Episode 13, Improbable, written by Chris Carter, directed by Chris Carter. I love poker. If you like Burt Reynolds, you might enjoy this one. It's also about numerology. It's a good time. Nothing big happens. Episode 14, Scary Monsters, written by Thomas Schnauz, directed by Dwight Little. Look who's back. The agent I still don't give a fuck about. She brought in the X-File, about a child with an active imagination. She's still talking about how Mulder and Scully would solve it. A wink by the show to the audience. Agent Doggett and Agent Reyes are the new team. It's a shame their spinoff plan didn't pan out. Such a shame. Such a shame. Perfect time to jump the shark. Episode 15. Written by Vince Gilligan, John Scheiben, and Frank Spotnitz. Directed by Cliff Bowl. This is the official conclusion to the series The Lone Gunmen. It got prematurely canceled, which was all about the bad ratings and had nothing to do with the pilot predicting 9/11 or anything. Morris Fletcher is back, which means so is guest star Michael McKean. He meets the new main characters and reminds the audience of who he is. If you've watched The Lone Gunmen, you might appreciate this wrap-up. If you don't like the super soldier storyline, you won't like this episode much. But no matter how you look at it, Vince, John, and Frank do a good job of writing the send-off. Episode 16, William. Story by David Duchovny, Frank Spotnitz, and Chris Carter. Teleplay by Chris Carter, directed by David Duchovny. Look who's back! He looks different. No, it's not Mulder, although the show definitely played with that possibility. They really fucking tried. I mean, really tried. But Scully knows him too well. It's Agent Jeffrey Spender, and she figures it out. He shares Mulder's DNA because they have the same father. He says William is fine now since he injected him, but it will never be over. So she gives him up, and he gets to live peacefully. Bye, William. So the baby's gone now. Not my favorite DD directed ep. Release, episode 17. Story by John Scheiben and David Amon. Teleplay by David Amon. Directed by Kim Manners. This student of Scully's isn't obsessive or anything. I really like the cinematography from Bill Rowe in this episode. There's an eerie atmosphere established. Mark Snow also kills it with the music. Story-wise, we sure did move on from William quickly, but consistency has never been this show's strong suit, so that's expected. It was still a good episode. Sunshine Days, episode 18. Vince Gilligan writes and directs this one. The last VG joint of the original run of the series is here, going after the younger demographic again. And Dave Faustino from Married with Children guest stars as a Brady Bunch aficionado. It made a comeback in the 90s. He, however, is just a cameo. Another Saw star joins the guest cast. That makes 3. Cool technology there, Scully. She says the death was caused by something electric, getting DPO flashbacks. It's like when I have my floating dreams and I think I'm going to hit the ceiling. Except they do. It's not his fault. He has psychokinesis. I do wonder how many people have that ability in real life. Scully brings up Mulder a lot in this ep, which is cool. How would he investigate this? He'd want proof. Thanks, Vince. The performances are top-notch, as is the writing and directing. Definitely a top 5 contender. This was as X-Files as this season gets. Then we have the finale. The series finale. Well, at the time. Episode 19, The Truth. Written by Chris Carter. Directed by Chris Carter. He's back! So is he. I like this opening. Weirdest prison ever. No sleeping. Reunion! He killed Noel Rohr, according to the government. We finally get a scene about William.
Our son, I gave him up. Our son. I'm so afraid you could never forgive me.
No, you had no choice.
Poor Mulder and Scully. Then Mulder is put on trial and we get a long walk down memory lane into the whole colonization storyline. Time for Spender to come to his defense.
Mulder's father lived his life in shame.
Not for the conspiracy, but for a terrible decision he made.
Involving Agent Mulder's sister.
The aliens distrusted their human collaborators. Members of the conspiracy were made to surrender family members as human collateral.
So Mulder's father gave up Mulder's sister. His own 8-year-old daughter.
Mulder witnessed his sister being abducted by aliens. It haunted him to no end. It's why he pursued the X-Files.
Mulder spent years looking for her. Several times thinking that he'd found her. But he was tricked.
Samantha was part of the cloning experiment done by the conspiracy.
I see here you describe Mulder as arrogant, difficult, a control freak, widely disliked by his peers.
Those reports were written before I knew the truth.
This report calls him unstable, prone to violent outbursts. I have the report right here, if your memory needs refreshing. Thank you, Mr. Spender.
Even the kids in the finale. And him. Whose truth? The truth. Don't you know the title? What a cast. Even her. Reminder that she fucked Krychek, in case you forgot. Walter questions her about the alien conspiracy, but Mulder's still seeing Krychek, so he doesn't go too hard on her. This finale reminds me of the Seinfeld finale, which, if you've seen it, spoiler alert, if you haven't, and skip this part. But when they had them on trial and brought out all the guest stars from over the years, it's almost exactly the same device used here. You either like it or you don't. And I like it. I think it's fun. We're trying a man for murder, not taking a trip down memory lane. This guy's got jokes. Anyway, we get some more flashbacks, and then Noel's body is found, and guess who's examining it? But Kirsch pitches a fit and goes on to have Mulder sentenced. Then we get a great speech from Mulder.
True evil is a collaboration of men, which is what we have here today. If I am a guilty man, my crime is in daring to believe that the truth will out and that no one lie can live forever. I believe it still. Much as you try to bury it, the truth is out there. Greater than your lies, the truth wants to be known. You will know it. It'll come to you, as it's come to me, faster than the speed of light.
Kirsch is convinced he helps break him out, finally. Only a matter of time until we saw CSM again. Our fave agents meet him in the desert. He says he helped Mulder find the truth, and that's more like it. Another final clip for you of Mulder and Scully in the hotel.
Maybe there's hope.
This series was amazing. It had a shitload of predictive programming, some crazy moments, some crazier than they should have been, some clunkers in its 9-season run, but it captured lightning in a bottle with the casting of David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. They made this show, and they rightfully ended it. A beautiful finale. And now, for the top 5 of the last season of the first part of the X-Files. The first run of the X-Files. And we have Release, number 5. I just really liked the atmosphere and that vibe of that episode. I thought it was really well done. It looked amazing. Trust No One, 4, just because of the Mulder and Sculliness of it. It just tugged at my heartstrings. What can I say? Lord of the Flies, I just love the acting, and Aaron Paul killed it, and it was a really good story. I really enjoyed it. Sunshine Days, a really great next to last episode. I thought it was really well written and done. And yeah, it was just fun. And then, obviously, The Truth is number 1. It was never not going to be number 1, because Mulder's back, and we had some really brilliant scenes, and we ended with Mulder and Scully in bed, and I can't be mad at that. So, all in all, a very interesting season, a good wrap-up. I thought it was really good at the time. I didn't need anything more after it, so whatever we get is just going to be what it is. And we'll see how that goes. But first, we got to get to the 2008 film, I Want to Believe, and I will cover it next time. Thank you so much for watching, and follow the page for updates, because we're not done yet. This is just the beginning of the end. Bye.